Semper Fi, men. In the spirit of Rick Pitino, I have a confession to make. And the confession is this. I spent some time with a prostitute this week. I had relations with a hooker. This hooker was turning tricks at a brothel in a wild place called Jericho, which is found in Joshua 2. Her name was Rahab, and she taught me a lot. She taught me that faith is a really, really big deal to God. You know, it always bothered me why a lying hooker is listed in the Hall of Fame for faith in Hebrews chapter 11. You know, the scene is something like this in Rahab's time. After 40 years of wandering in the desert, the Israelites are right back where they started. Moses is dead, and Joshua is now leading this motley crew. And the Lord tells Joshua that the land is his. Every place that they step, the Israelites step, the land will be theirs. But the Lord warns Joshua 4 times in chapter 1 of Joshua to be brave and courageous and keep the word of God on his lips. Joshua, being a good military man, sends out 2 spies to recce the land. 2 spies to check it out around Jericho. The spies check into a local brothel there to escape detection. But the king of Jericho gets word that they're there, and he sends out an order to Rahab to put them out. And Rahab makes this great statement of faith in the book. The Lord your God is God in heaven above and on earth below. And she decides to go against her own people. She lies to the king's messengers and hides the spies. Now, if Rahab is caught in this thing, she's going to be dead meat. Rahab is a woman of great faith. In fact, she showed a lot more faith and trust in the Lord than 8 of the 10 spies that spied out the land in Jericho some 40 years before. Remember, only Joshua and Caleb came back with a good report. She believed and she acted on her faith. And how often, I believe, but I don't act. How often I meet people in the marketplace or wherever that need to know Jesus and are open to it, and I don't speak. Or I meet people that need healing, and I don't make the offer to pray for them for healing. In Hebrews 11:6, it says, without faith, it's impossible to please God. But of course, the flip side of that is, with faith, it's impossible not to please God. And 1 Peter 4:8 says, love covers a multitude of sins. Maybe faith does the same. Faith is a very big deal to God. Rahab was just looking to save her skin, but God rewarded her faith with salvation and much more. He inserted her in his own ancestral line, which you can read in Matthew 1. Faith is spelled R-I-S-K. How important it is for us to step out in faith and allow God's miracle-working power to flow through us. Rahab teaches us that faith is the key to God's heart and to his power. Fear is the opposite of faith. However, it's natural to have fear, but we can't let it paralyze us. We must exercise courage and be strong and courageous, like the Lord told Joshua, and walk in the face of fear. Step out in faith and move forward. Our faith will conquer our fear. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's the absence of self. It's the presence of God and his strength in us. How many of us would expect a great act of faith out of a hooker? How many of us would not even have walked by her, but might have crossed the street, the other side of the street, to not to be contaminated by her? Yet God blesses this woman by putting her in the lineage of Christ. God's blessings come in surprising packages. God can use anybody. For example, Noah was a drunk. Abraham was too old. Isaac was a daydreamer. Jacob was a liar. Leah was ugly. Joseph was abused. Moses had a stuttering problem. Gideon was afraid. Samson had long hair and he was a womanizer. Rahab was a prostitute, a hooker. Jeremiah and Timothy were too young. David had an affair and was a murderer. He was an adulterer. Elijah was suicidal. Isaiah preached naked. Job went bankrupt. John the Baptist ate bugs. Peter denied Christ. The disciples fell asleep while praying. Martha worried about everything. The Samaritan woman was divorced more than once. Zacchaeus was too small. Paul was too religious. Timothy had an ulcer. And Lazarus was dead, for crying out loud. What do you have that's worse than that? So no more excuses. God can use you to your full potential. Besides, you aren't the message, you're just the messenger. So get out of the boat and begin to walk on the water. Witness to Jesus at every opportunity. Boldly offer to pray for people on the job, in the mall, everywhere. Be strong and courageous. If a hooker can do it, so can you. God bless you.